And we are unfortunately live. How you doing, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest post-game segment here for the Metropolitans, this time against the Philadelphia Phillies in London. We have a London series to break down, and what was a bloody massacre here for the Metropolitans, as they would be taken down by the Philadelphia Phillies today by a final score of 7-2. And if you're wondering, Wardy, why is it unfortunate that we're doing a post-game show? Not unfortunate that we're doing the show. Always love them. That's why we're the #1 post-game show here on YouTube covering the Metropolitans. As always, thanks to you amazing Mets fans hitting that like and subscribe button for your boy. But the big thing here is that a Starling Marte piss-poor defensive play that we have seen how many times already this season in right field gauges greater questions for Marte's playing time going forward if we want to hold guys accountable. Manaea is still not being able to get you 4 innings is a major problem, regardless of Starling Marte's hiccups that we'll get into. And the offense, again, when you go 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position, there's really not much more to be had there of excitement, of interest level. So I know we got a lot of diehard Mets fans that went out of their way to go across the pond for this series, and all I can say is I hope you guys and gals did that more so for the reasoning to go, oh, I can watch my favorite team play while actually getting a trip out of this, being in London maybe for the first time, or you're a reoccurring person there going. Either way, I just hope for my Mets fans that spent the hard-earned money, that went over the pond, that of course have done the trip, at least have had an enjoyable experience overall, because one thing is certain, the enjoyment did not come from the Mets themselves as they dropped this one, game 1 of a 2-game set again, by a final score of 7-2. We're going to get into the highlights, we're going to get into breaking the game down, any by any, my biggest takeaways, my biggest gripes, along with some key updates on Jeff McNeil and his playing time. What is that going to be going forward? Carlos Mendoza spoke about that pregame today, and we came out with a video over the past day or so on McNeil and why his days appear numbered and why exactly that could be. We'll get into that. A bit on Francisco Alvarez, Kodai Senga, Edwin Diaz, and then some. And of course, going to answer whatever questions you guys got for me in the live show. For people watching on replay, let me know your biggest takeaway down below from the Mets dropping game 1 of a 2-game set here in London, where the Mets have their game 2 tomorrow right around 10 a.m. Eastern. So your boy Wardy's got to be up early and make sure we're doing early coverage for you guys and gals. We will, of course, make that happen as we always do. Again, we're going to get into the highlights here, as you guys and gals see. Not too many highlights in Mets land today, but some to show off there. A lot more for the Phillies and the Mets. Then we'll get into the pitching. I'll tell you why Manaea was frustrating, but how much does he have fault for? On the offense, why going 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position is simply never going to get it done. And then from there, we will, of course, hear from our amazing sponsors at BetUS and so we're MLB a little bit later in the show. However, everybody, first and foremost, how's everybody doing? Thank you all so much for taking the time to chime in. Greatly appreciate that. Hope you are doing fantastic. Dave, great member on the channel, says trade Lazy Marte to Braves. Nope, because here's the problem. If you want to trade Marte and somehow get rid of that contract where you're going to have to eat a good chunk of it, the last thing you want to do is trade him to a rival that will maximize his value, because if there's one team that can get players right after leaving a team like the Mets, it is in fact the Atlanta Braves. So no, we're going to disregard that thought process, but I appreciate you chiming in nonetheless, Dave. Great member, great friend as always. Kay Robinson, how you doing? Happy to have you in here. Fooled by playing an equally bad Nats team. Not fooled, but again, it's a reality check. Let's bear in mind the Mets just played the best team in Major League Baseball right now. So as much as we love to beat up on this team, us more than any other fan base at times it feels like, let's also look at the greater picture here. You're facing the Philadelphia Phillies, which are quite literally the best in Major League Baseball at the moment. They have been on an absolute roll. Let's get into the key updates. Let's start with Jeff McNeil, okay? Jeff McNeil, the hits got more like McHits. Is he going to be McGone soon? And the reason why we feel and may think that is because Jose Iglesias, again, today got his 4th straight start, and now it's a 5th consecutive game against left-handed starters, which Jeff McNeil has not started a game, which is very uncharacteristic for the Mets and Jeff McNeil in the past, considering Jeff has done very well against lefty pitching throughout his career, especially starters. That hasn't changed the Mets' mindset on saying Jose Iglesias has been playing some really nice baseball, putting the ball in play well, and even though his defense can be suspect versus McNeil, who's more of a surefire guarantee between the two at second base, we're going to play Iglesias. Well, the Mets do plan to play Jeff McNeil tomorrow, but is he going to play at second base? I will make the argument that Jeff McNeil may just play tomorrow, but keep Jose Jose Iglesias in the lineup potentially and have Jose at second while Jeff commands either left or right field based on Marte's lack of ability that we saw today. A lot of questions for Mendoza to answer heading into tomorrow's early morning matchup on the East Coast here, and I know they're 5 hours ahead, so do the math. I don't know, was that 3 p.m., 3 or 4 p.m. Eastern is what it'll be for them. So not Eastern, whatever the time zone is. You guys know what I'm trying to say. Either way, McNeil is expected to get back in the lineup tomorrow, whether that's a good or a bad thing. He will be getting his first reps in pretty much a week as a starter for the Mets, and they will go from there. So that's the latest on the Jeff McNeil front, whether it's second base or the corner outfields. Expect him back in the lineup for the Mets tomorrow as they're trying to get him out of the current rut that he's been in. And again, if he continues to labor, continues to struggle, and doesn't have a good mentality or a great attitude coming off the bench, then he's going to stay coming off the bench versus getting his usual platoon reps that we have been seeing at minimum there at second base. But the latest on McNeil is said. Let's talk about Francisco Alvarez just briefly, everybody. Should make a video on all the players that could be traded for. Which player? Oh, 100% Matthew. Don't worry. We already got trade stuff locked and loaded. Trust me, there's already rumblings going on and how the Mets are potential sellers big time by the deadline, which is, again, something we all know. I think it's common sense all the guys that can be parted with by the Mets by the deadline, but we will have a thorough breakdown on that. I'm actually going to have a video coming out in the coming days that'll either be more so on the latest reports behind the Mets being potential sellers, or on the flip hand, why they may be standing pat and really holding on as long as they can, and why exactly that is. I have some things in my notes that I'm excited to share with you all in the coming days. I'll break down into video format. The McNeil video too, that was one of those things I've been wanting to do for a while, and I was actually planning to do a separate video, hop back into that one, because I was like, you know what, this just makes so much sense to do it with the timing of Jeff's lack of play right now, Iglesias prospering in his position, and the Mets having a lack of committal viewpoint on McNeil and his playing time, or rather lack thereof on the consistent front. But I digress. We talked about McNeil on Alvarez. Francisco Alvarez unfortunately had to fly back to Venezuela recently, his home country, because of family matters. So the initial return date was around June 11th for Mr. Francisco Alvarez, who we all love and miss dearly as our #1 backstop. He will be returning to the Mets, if I had to assume, probably anywhere from 3 to 5 days after that point. So I think we might see Alvarez back at maybe sometime 14th, 15th. Could be a little bit later, could be a little sooner. Either way, the exact date when Francisco Alvarez will return is not yet available, and I'm just sending prayers his way that nothing too serious is going on with his family, which is what unfortunately warranted the flight back to his home country. So that's the latest on Francisco Alvarez. And then on Kodai Senga, he continues to throw, but there is still no true timetable, which is basically the Mets' way of saying that, yes, he's going to slowly ramp up. Don't expect him back any sooner than post-All-Star break. And again, that may even feel like a stretch depending on how long it takes him to get ramped up, have the inflammation completely down, which was separate from his shoulder initially, and kind of go from there. So we'll see what the futures of Kodai Senga, but if the Mets can get him back at any point this season, it feels like that's going to be a good thing with the way things have unfortunately continued to be set back. Something that hasn't been set back, however, is Mr. Edwin Diaz, who had a clean inning of work or so there in the minor leagues on a rehab stint. Edwin Diaz, who was sitting 96 to 98 on his fastball, not all that shocking, similar to what he's been sitting this season as well. But he worked a scoreless 5th inning in High A Brooklyn just a couple days ago with a pair of strikeouts. So Edwin Diaz will be returning to the Mets as soon as humanly possible off the 15-day IL stint, which feels far more of a less of a shoulder impingement and just a simple excuse to have him get on the IL, try to get him right as a guy that lost a lot of confidence and also just lost moxie behind that fastball slider combination, which we know has been oh so dominant when right, and of course still working his way back out of baseball for over a year with that unfortunate tear in his knee last March or so in the World Baseball Classic. Cameron Kier, thank you for the $2 haul. Cameron says, let's see, Lindor looks like he wants out of NY. I don't really know what insinuated that comment, Cameron. I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit in the show. I mean, here's the thing. Regardless on how Cameron feels about New York, not Cameron, but Lindor, and I know Lindor does like it here, he isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So, yeah, that's one thing that isn't changing literally anytime soon for so many obvious reasons. And Lindor, since batting leadoff for the Mets, has been absolutely thriving. He has continued to roll in that position. Had another solid day at the plate today, but wasn't able to show up when the Mets needed him and other big boppers in this lineup. So, folks, that's the latest on Alvarez, Senga, and Edwin Diaz. Let's break down this ballgame, shall we? All right, let's do exactly that, folks. And actually, my apologies. one more thing before we break down the game. And actually, you know what? I'll wait because I know for my replay viewers, you guys get fed up if I take too long with this. We'll throw in the ad read after the fact. No worries. So let's start things off here in the first inning where Bryce Harper again rips a lefty double there off of the southpaw Sean Manaea. Thankfully, nothing else transpired in that inning, but already some power showcased by one of the best first basemen now in Major League Baseball, and Bryce Harper. In the bottom of the first, Francisco Lindor with a double himself. 2 outs later, J.D. Martinez gets on base via a hit-by pitch, and Starling Marte in a 2-out count makes Mr. Southpaw Ranger Suarez pay. Rips a not a 2-run, but a RBI double to give the Mets the early 1-0 lead, and Starling Marte, he giveth and he taketh. That is the problem with Bloody Marte, as I put on the thumbnail. Just cue the whole fact that we're in London. I'm going to buy into these stereotypes on the wordplay. No less, as we get to the top of the second, again, the Mets are up 1-0. Couldn't convert more there than just that RBI double by Marte, but nice early production by the Mets, or at least it would appear that way. Amazing vintage. Don't worry. We're going to get on the defensive numbers here shortly in regards to Marte. We all know it. We all seen it. We're going to talk more about it. Manaea worked a beautiful 1-2-3 second and third inning today. In the bottom of the third, Pete Alonso gets on base for the first time today with a walk. Then in the top of the fourth, this is where everything goes to shit. This is where literally things go to hell, quite frankly. We have a Bryce Harper home run, a solo shot. Harper continues to tear the cover off the ball this season and be a true leader there for the Phillies. Harper, as we know, slid and did, his best soccer impression, or football, however you like to say it, obviously there, especially in London, England, after he hit his home run. It tied the ball game 1-1. And after that home run, a Alec Boehm single gets a guy on base, a Stott walk, and a hard-worked 3-2 count, and then a Sosa RBI single is what really begins the killer here. And I'm not going to sit here and say Starling Marte single-handedly lost things for the Mets today, because that is not true. However, Marte's lack of defensive competency carried the Mets into their ultimate loss from the runs that they gave up at bare minimum. Sean Manaea, you can absolutely fault for having a piss-poor fourth inning, all things considered. Even when defense wasn't on his side, you're a professional. You need to be better working those quick outs and not giving up bombs, in which you did multiple times in this inning. However, something needs to be said for a Starling Marte on this ball that you see here. Was afraid of the hop, decides to let it hop on a 95% catch probability of a ball there to right field. Starling Marte allows the drop. That gives the game-leading run there to the Phillies, and they would never look back. They would go on then to have a 6-run inning, but before we break down how exactly that transpired, let's just get into the numbers here briefly on the nonsense behind Starling Marte's lack of defensive ability here. Starling Marte, again, this season alone, has a -8 outs above average. Just for some context, that is one of the worst in all of Major League Baseball. That is the second worst among defenders in all positions in Major League Baseball. That is the worst among right fielders in Major League Baseball. And again, guys, for context, outs above average is, again, a proper way to evaluate how you are as a defender. So if you're a plus, especially in that area, you're looking solid. But if you're a negative, it is certainly a problem. I mean, basically, to be a -8 OAA is almost impressive to be a negative player, because it is pretty easy to be at least league average, if not above league average, or in the 50% plus. So major problems here with Starling Marte with his lack of defensive ability here, and the fact that he, again, just jogs to it, was afraid to dive to that ball because of the hop. There was something about that for Marte, and I don't know if it's because of where they were playing, obviously, playing in London, playing in not a traditional ballpark, but I'm not even going to use that, and apologies, everybody. I'm just trying to get my camera back to focus for a sec, because here's the bigger thing in regards to Starling Marte. It's one thing to have this defensive miscue. Okay, you're on a London trip. You're not used to the ballpark. Okay, I understand those things to a degree. But what I simply do not understand is, considering this is a Starling Marte who has struggled mightily for a good stretch of time now. We're looking at 2 seasons already. 2 seasons where Starling Marte has been such a glaring hole defensively on the day-by-day there in right field. And give me one more second, folks. Try and get this damn camera focused, but of course it wants to do other things, so just bear with me 1 second. There we go. Took long enough. All right, so Marte's defense is a problem. And when we get into Marte's defense, when I tell you it's a glaring problem, it's to the point that where you're that negative of a defensive player, you are played a heavy hand into quite literally winning and losing ball games for the Mets. So while Marte still did have 2 hits today and did drive in one of the Mets' 2 runs, that is something to make note of. You also have to make note of what you're doing or lack thereof on the defensive end. And Marte now is having such a glaring issue defensively that we are seeing, to the point where, again, no one, and I mean no one, should be shocked. And honestly, I hope this happens, that McNeil, assuming he's back in the lineup tomorrow from what Mendoza said, plays left or right field. That's what should happen. And if you're going to play him in left, obviously shift Nimmo to center and put Tyrone Taylor in right. If you want to play him in right, then keep Nimmo in center and have Bader or Tyrone in center. It's fine by me. You know, either way, you have enough defensive options. Even DJ Stewart, if you really want to give him a start there in right field, he's not going to be any better defensively than Starling Marte, so that's probably a lateral move at best, even with the bat too. But Tyrone Taylor, Harrison Bader, Brandon Nimmo, that outfield configuration gives you enough options to get creative here. And if you're saying, hey, you know what, Starling, we want you to get a day off here, we want you to just kind of hold up a bit, that defense was a problem, we got to hold you accountable, this is the way to do it. Otherwise, it's just silly to kind of throw him back out there as if something never happened, when this is a Marte that, unlike Lindor, where when Lindor has his errors, you know they're few and far in between. You know Francisco Lindor is still going to go out and have a Gold Glove caliber season. You know he's going to be fantastic in the OAA among shortstops. Can't say the same about Starling Marte, who it feels like every single week has boneheaded clear defensive mishaps in right field that can be avoided if there's just competency behind it. Now, I don't know, again, physically, if he has major issues because of all the surgeries he's had in recent years with his hips and stuff. That goes at all in hand with why he has a lack of ability to dive there on that play. But right now, from all we're seeing, it is hard to not look at that and say that that was not only beyond playable, but it's kind of ridiculous that he wasn't able to make that play, given the probability and given the eye test, what we all saw there. There's a reason why all of us were kind of freaking out the way that we were when we first saw it, regardless of the fact that it had a 95% probability of catching. Cameron, thank you so much for the donation. As Frank the Tank would say, putrid, pathetic, feeble. The PPF is what we like to call it for short here, Cameron. Thank you for the donation. And yes, it was putrid, it was pathetic, and it was feeble, which was the Mets today. Can't deny that. Straight Talk with Graham says in the chat, Fox guy said Marte played it safe because the ball bounces so much on the turf in London. BS. He wussed out and didn't play the ball. Bottom line, he's got a great arm, but below average defense, 1,000%. Marte's arm is fantastic, similar to Yoenis Cespedes, but something both now have in common, especially as they got into the latter half of their career, the defensive ability just not there. He is a liability on the field, and because of those reasons, I want to see Marte either DHing or out of the lineup tomorrow. That is a play warranted enough, and with our outfield configuration, to make sure that he doesn't need to play today, tomorrow in the field after the kind of miscue he had today. Because here's the thing, if Marte has another miscue like that tomorrow, that again can cost the Mets. And this is not me saying that this is all on fault, all on the shoulders of Sean Manaea. But what I am saying, Starling Marte. But what I am saying here is that it's a problem. And it didn't make things any easier for Sean Manaea, who from there would get absolutely worked. If you're wondering how Manaea got worked, he gave up a 3-run ding-dong to a guy that has not really played good baseball most season, Whit Merrifield, the same Whit Merrifield that famously said heading into the year that he really wanted to be an Atlanta Brave, but Atlanta didn't want him, so he settled with the Phillies, which right now is looking like the better option, funny enough. But Whit Merrifield, the schmuck who has a 174 average and a 544 OPS on the season, ripped a 3-run home run on Sean Manaea, and that blew the doors open in this one. The Mets are already down 5-1 at this point, and a Pache double and a Schwarber RBI single later in the same inning makes it 6-1 Philadelphia Phillies. We advance an inning plus later to the bottom of the 6th with 2 outs. Jose Iglesias and Luis Torrens get on base for the Mets. So again, the least likely guys who contribute offense have still been getting the job done in the 8 and 9 spots for the Mets. Torrens is giving the Mets a major question as to what they should do with Tomas Nido once Alvarez returns from his injury list stint. And again, we know that'll be happening over the next week or so. So it'll be interesting to see if Torrens can continue the hot play with the bat and solid defense to warrant considering him over Tomas Nido, and what Nido has carried his weight and played fine, but Torrens has equally played very good every time out there since being called upon. And what has been, I will say, a very limited sample size. Daniel, happy to have you in the chat here, my man. Great member. We'll get to your comments here shortly, brother. Appreciate everyone for chiming in live on a replay, folks, as we bring down the latest in Mets land. again as they drop this one tonight in a game one of a 2-game set in London against the Phillies by a final score of 7-2. We're getting into what are the major problems of the Mets at the moment, why did they falter, and ultimately what can be had here heading into their Game 2 matchup tomorrow. And speaking of things, unfortunately, not going right in Mets land, which I've said a lot here, that continued here in the top of the 7th. We see a single there for JT Realmuto after the Mets could not convert there in the bottom of the 6th. Again, they had 2 outs. Suarez is taken out of the game. Reliever comes in, I believe, in Hoffman, and Lindor strikes out, unfortunately, to end the inning. If it wasn't Hoffman, it was, who was it? I'm sorry, it was Kirkering? I'm going to butcher that last name. I'm going to butcher that whole name for the Phillies. Great reliever, though. 1.19 ERA so far this season for him. Just cannot say the name to save my life. No less, we see the Mets again give up a home run. The 3rd home run they give up today. This time to Nick Castellanos with a towering, just fair home run deep to left field. It's high, it's far, it's out of here. Castellanos home run makes it a 6-1 lead. 7-1 lead there for the Philadelphia Phillies. The Mets would add a run back there that we would see, around the same time there in the, they would add a run back that we would see in the bottom of the 5th, if I skipped that already. But that's really all she wrote. Nothing fancy for the Mets in this one. In the 9th, they had Lindor with a walk, Alonso with a single, Brandon Nimmo with a single, bases loaded, 1 out for JD Martinez. And JDM, while JD snapped his hitting streak today, also snapped his ability to get key hits for the Mets when they needed, with runners in scoring position and less than 2 out. He grounds into a double play. That ends the inning, and that ends the ball game. The Mets go on to lose by a final score of 7-2. We transpired in this ball game, everybody. I want to get into the pitching. I want to get into the hitting. I want to get into all that fun stuff for you. But before I do, folks, let's hear a quick word from today's video sponsor and our great friends on the channel, in case you guys and gals do not know them already, our awesome friends at Sorare MLB. And in case you guys and gals do not know Sorare MLB, Sorare is the best MLB fantasy game out there. It is free to play, but of course you can buy, sell, and trade actual virtual cards with your friends and people in the marketplace online, again, for all your MLB fantasy needs. If you guys like being your own GM, if you like building your own roster, drafting your team, entering weekly tournaments, in which if you do well in these tournaments, you win real prizes, if not upgraded cards to make your team better than the way it currently is, or cash prizes, hundreds if not thousands of dollars, various giveaways, jersey giveaways, ticket giveaways. We've done Mets ticket giveaways on the channel in the past, all just for signing up to Sorare MLB and drafting and entering your latest tournament. It is that simple to work with. And as you guys and gals can see right here, I have my latest teams right now. One is cut off at the moment. Let me click on it so you guys can see a little bit better. I have Tyler Glass now, Edwin Diaz is still on the IL, Joey Ortiz, Gunnar Henderson, Brandon Nimmo, Gunnar Henderson, that's Adley Rutschman, George Kirby, and that's my roster in one of my tournaments. I did really well in my previous tournaments, and here's the other one I got set up at the moment. Brian Reynolds, who's being productive at the moment, Jared Kelenic, George Kirby, Rutschman, Alex Bregman, Tanner Scott, and yes, Justin Verlander, because he's expected to start. A lot of these cards I have are from last season as well with Sorare MLB, but these are how my tournaments did last week. I did 2,400 out of roughly 11,000 in my rankings, so I won a tier 1 prize there, and that was just under 190 points. My other one, I got ranked 752 out of 2,300, so not as good there, but did really strong in my one tournament. So again, guys, it's so simple, so easy to play, and if you guys sign up today, again, you'll be automatically entered for your chance to win awesome giveaways that we're going to be doing on the channel starting the next week or so with Sorare MLB that we'll be doing collaborative things with. So make sure you're on the lookout. And as always, shout out to our great friends at Sorare MLB for all your fantasy needs. Now, hopping back into this one, everybody, let's talk a bit on the pitching end, because Sean Manaea again had a far from brilliant outing today. And this is one of those things where when I evaluate Sean Manaea's start today, I can only nitpick him so much. Again, this is Sean. I know Sean Manaea isn't overly dominant. I know Sean Manaea is never a guy that really comes off as being overly dominant. When it comes to someone in Sean Manaea, he's a guy that at best we get, 6-7 innings of really solid 0 or 1 run ball. And at worst, it's kind of outings like this. And it's unfortunate because you're left wondering, okay, if Marte did catch that ball and that run didn't score, is he able to get out of this? Does he not throw the same pitches that he throws at Whit Merrifield? Again, there are questions that we will ponder and ask ourselves, but Sean Manaea still needs to be better to get work the way he did in that 4th inning. I can only blame Marte so much, even though that he's a focal point of the problem here. Sean Manaea, for me, It's hard to give him a rating outside of like 3.5 out of 10 on this one. But two, he's just the lack of proper location against very good Philly hitters. To get barreled as hard as he does against Bryce Harper, lefty and lefty, is not ideal. To not utilize a sweeper heavier, without handing it the way that he does in Shamania. Again, when he has the heater working too, that's great. But we just saw clear problems with Shamania today, and the arsenal today was as follows with him. The sinker was 53% of the time, averaged right around 93 miles per hour, which he used the most. The sweeper, 23% of the time, he averaged 78 miles per hour. Changeup, 16% of the time, 87 miles per hour. Forcing fastball, he just threw a handful of times, 4% of the time, 94 miles per hour, and the cutter a couple times, 4% of the time too, 89 miles per hour. Just did not get the whiffs that he was looking for. Shamania today just could not get things going the way that we were hoping for, and that's why we got the lack of clear depth here from Shamania, and that's what's been a killer for the Mets. When they have been getting killed from their bullpen, it's because of starts like this, when you have to utilize a solid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 relievers today to still lose a game by 5 runs. That's a greater problem too. It's like, okay, if you're going to get your start out early, hopefully you can rally back and make a ball game out of this if you're going to have to use your pen, but no, we're just going to use 5 relievers, 6 total pitchers today, and this is ultimately the reality. Not fun, not ideal, something that we don't want to have to go through as Mets fans. Sean Reed-Foley, of course, came in relief shortly there for Mr. Shamania to just get the final out there. Adrian Hauser was brilliant today. I can't say enough great things about Hauser today. And one thing that certainly stood out today on the Hauser front, and shout out to my man Isaac Groffman for pointing this out, because I didn't notice this right away. His fastball was up 2 ticks today, and he threw it right around 95.7 miles per hour. That is the fastest heater that Adrian Hauser has thrown since the 2022 season. So Hauser in the bullpen is having an uptick in velo and an uptick in success. Again, there's a reason why Hauser as a starter now has an ERA over 8, and as a reliever has an ERA just over 1. Keep Adrian Hauser in the bullpen. I know the ERA isn't pretty, but that doesn't do it enough justice if you just look at the splits between being a starter and a reliever. So playing like that from Hauser, Danny Young did his thing. Love that sweeper. Love everything Danny Young has provided as a lefty here. Even with the run that he came up there, I've still been happy with Danny Young. He's far from a concern for me in this bullpen at the moment. Mets are still losing this game regardless of him giving up what he gave up there. Adam Ottavino, again, worked a couple, not clean innings, but a couple outs of clean work there. And then we saw Jake Diekman with a clean 9th inning as well, sub-4 ERA for the veteran southpaw and the Diekmeister himself. And then on the offensive end, again, everybody, you're just hitting in bunches. And when you're hitting in bunches, normally that isn't a problem, but it's a problem when you're big boppers in the sake of JD Martinez. And I mean, let's even call it a buck. Lindor, Alonso, of course, they went gap to gap, but we would have liked to see more production there outside of, again, I'm not going to rag on them too much today, but when you still get 2 earned runs, you want more. And in a London trip too, where those baseballs are probably juiced at least a little bit, you're hoping for something better. So from the offense as a whole today, again, a lot of hits, but not enough production, not enough consistent production runners in scoring position. Far from it, and that's why we're talking the way that we are. Let's see. When are they not playing Why are they not playing the Washington Nationals anymore? Because unfortunately, the Mets cannot play the Nationals every single game, no matter how much that we may love or wish that to be the case. But as we see here, everybody, again, Dave says, sorry, Jose Harper, a better all-around player than Alonso, and I'm a Mets fan. Oh, I agree, 100%. Yep. As much as I love Alonso, Harper is a better all-around player. I'll make that argument for sure. The numbers back it to the consistency. Alonso's great with his hitting, but Harper never goes streaky the way that Alonso goes streaky as a true power hitter. That's a difference for sure. Speaking of the offense, though, Francisco Lindor today, 2 for 4 with the runs scored and the double, 239 average, 723 OPS on the season. Pete Alonso, 2 for 4 with the double and the walk, 243 average, 801 OPS. Brandon Nimmo, 1 for 5, 222 average, 728 OPS. I have seen enough of Brandon Nimmo batting third. Whether you move him up in the order or lower, something needs to give on that front. Brandon Nimmo is not a 3-hitter, and while Francisco Lindor is thriving as a leadoff hitter, and I like that, we need to try to find something better for Brandon because he continues to lack the consistency there in the 3-hole. I feel like the 3-hole as a whole is just a glaring hole for the Mets, no matter who's in that position as of late. JD Martinez 0 for 4. 273 average, 780 OPS on the season. Starling Marte, again, 2 hits, but he giveth, he taketh. So, again, it's a Jekyll and Hyde outing for Marte today with the double of the RBI, 280 average, 750 OPS. If you looked at Marte's offensive numbers on the season, you'd say to yourself, Marte's having a good year. When you look at the overall numbers offensively and defensively, you're reeled back in and say, okay, it's far from the best year. It's not the worst, but defense is a major issue. Like, you're playing so bad defensively right now that you should be a DH, and you don't hit enough for power to warrant being a consistent DH. We get on to Mark Vientos, an 0 for a rare 0 for 4 for Marky V. We see 314 average at 958 OPS on the season. Harrison Bader 0 for 3 today, 267 average, 685 OPS. Jose Iglesias 2 for 4 with the double, 409 average, 935 OPS. Luis Torrens 1 for 3, 308 average, and 1200 OPS on the season. We love ourselves some Luis Torrens. And DJ Stewart 0 for 1, 186 average, 687 OPS. He's fallen from grace a little bit too since, riding the bench more often than not that we've seen over the past couple weeks. Give me 1 second, everybody. Get this thing focused. Can we get this thing focused? Hold on, everybody. Okay, we do. Sweet. Everybody, if there's one positive I can share with you that isn't regarding the Mets right now, I'll get to some of your comments too before we wrap things up. It is our great friends at BetUS. And when I tell you guys that I'm not going to just transition into our next next sponsor on the channel simply because they're a sponsor, I'm also doing it because I was like, you know what? I want to give back. Let's do a really fun giveaway. So that's exactly what you're doing, everybody. You have a great chance now up until the end of the week is when we will officially be selecting a random winner. I'm giving you guys more time because I don't think nearly enough of you guys are getting in on this right now. I can count on my hands till the amount of people that have entered this giveaway. It's so easy to enter for you guys to win a Mets jersey of any player currently on the roster that you want. We're talking roughly a $200 jersey for free from your boy Wardy out of pocket. And all you have to do to enter, folks, is the simple steps. 1, sign up to BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook, by clicking the link down below in the description of the live show here with our unique link to sign up today and place one bet. It can be a bet with $1, can be a bet with $1,000. Doesn't matter to me how much money you actually spend on the bet. Just place one singular bet and then send your boy Wardy a screenshot, a proof of this. Again, literally just screenshot it on your phone or on your computer or whatever. Just send it to me via email to drawt7@protonmail.com. Again, is available in the description of the live show here. Draw DRAWT7 number 7 at protonmail, PROTON mail, MAIL.com. And that's all you guys got to do for your chance to enter. So what does that mean? If you guys do those simple steps, your odds of winning this jersey could simply be 1 out of 10. It could be 1 out of 20. It could be 1 out of 30. It might even be a little bit less, might be a little bit more. It depends on how much this picks up over the next week. But by the end of the week, I will announce a jersey giveaway winner, folks. So make sure you get in on the action by doing those simple steps. And right now, everybody, we're going to take a look at the live odds at the moment. We have the Atlanta Braves down 3 here against the Washington Nationals, but I absolutely love here the Braves to cover on spread and make sure that they win or make sure that they don't lose by any more than 2.5 runs here, because this is still early goings in the game, folks. So I am going to put down right here, I am going to risk, we're going to put down, say, 40, and that the odds change to -135, and that's fine. And we're going to put down here, if I can put the odds down, if it's going to let me, give me 1 second, everybody, except we're going to put down 30 on the risk, if it's going to let me. I don't know why this thing's taking so far, except, okay, hold on, everybody, just give me 1 second. If not, then we will try something else here briefly. 30 to 123. We're gonna put that down. Absolutely love it. Except that I just had it down. Come on, folks. Come on, baby. Okay, 30 to 127. There we go. 30 109. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry, guys. I keep hitting clear. That's why. My apologies, folks. Okay. There we go. Let's get that bet placed. 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm basically putting 30 in to win 30. And again, all the Braves need to do in order for that to happen is to simply do exactly that. So again, guys, make sure you bet responsibly. If you want to tail, go ahead. The selection has changed. That is Not a problem whatsoever. And good luck to everybody that placed their live bets here with BetUS, or again, any bets that you do on the daily, because I do my daily betting bets on the MLB picks. And right now, I'm going to take a look at these slates here tomorrow. We'll go over them on our post game then, especially because it's early day game for the Mets, 10 a.m. Eastern was when it begins. So we'll be able to go over those picks. But again, guys, 2 simple steps. Sign up to BetUS today. 125% bonus too if you sign up with my unique link for the first time. Not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits. Place a bet and send me a screenshot to my email. We will announce a winner of the Mets jersey giveaway by the end of the week. Good luck to everybody that enters, and shout out, as always, to our great friends at BetUS. But hop back in this one now. Matthew Martell, thank you so much for the $10 donation. Matthew says, with the money coming off the books and some bright spots in the farm, we got to get some guys out of here with some type of decent return, and let Stearns and do some more offseason magic for 2025. I agree. And I think, again, if the Mets go on to be more full seller than anything by the deadline, which is still what things are looking like at this very moment, barring any changes for the production or lack thereof from the team, yes, sell off some guys for sure, build the farm more, and really try to work things big time this offseason heading into 2025. I agree, and I think that's a reality we will likely find ourselves in unless the Mets somehow become stubborn by the deadline and become more buyers than sellers. I think even in a world where the Mets are buyers at the deadline for either immediate help or help for 2025 and beyond, they're still going to sell. They're still going to sell. Sean Manaea is among that group that I could see them partying with, even if Manaea, again, looks good leading up to the deadline. Cameron, thank you so much for the donation, my man. His 20th dono here on the channel. Greatly appreciate that, brother. Says the Mets are almost as bad as the White Sox. Almost. Keyword almost there. I would love some Tommy Pham back, though. Who wouldn't, right? Appreciate that donation, Cameron. You're the absolute best. Thank you, brother. And thank you guys all so much again for checking out our awesome sponsors at Sora MLB and BetUS for all that have and all that are going to. I'm a huge Mets fan and would gladly trade Pete for Harper. I'm 99% sure the people in this chat would as well. Yep, a lot of people would. 100%. Yes, Tyler, the pitching this season has been a problem. Two Stearns must address the issue. I agree. And the bullpen, which was a strong suit first month plus, hasn't been, because it's been worked as consistently as it's been. And with the Mets starters lacking the depth, that's only going to hurt this team more, and they're going to continue to dig themselves in a hole that they cannot find themselves out of, everybody. So Mets fans, I don't know where we are at in the like count, but if you guys could hit that like and subscribe button for your boy, greatly appreciate. Thank you all so much. I think the only real thing to say at this point is you hope the Mets can split the series tomorrow, get back to 8 games below 500. Then, of course, you're done with the London trip, kick things off from there, and hope everything rolls, and you have yourself a positive June, which is a very hard thing to do, but they do have a schedule that can warrant it should the Mets just go out and grab it for a change. Again, you have a homestand in Miami, a homestand against Miami, and a homestand against San Diego. The Mets are somehow going to, at best, split that series, and that's going to be the most frustrating part. Then they're in Texas and in Chicago. Again, these are teams that are right around on their level right now in performance, all teams that they can be going toe-to-toe with, but will they able to prevail or will they flounder? I have concerns for the Mets heading back home unless they can really turn on with the weather finally on our side at Citi Field, and then you get into Texas and Chicago, then you got the Subway Series, and then Houston, and that wraps up the month. This could be a very favorable month for the Mets if they just put their right foot forward. Will they or not? That's always a greater question. We'll have to see it to believe it. So until then, everybody, that's going to do it for the live show. I thank you all so much for watching. Again, not too long-winded of a one today. The Mets lose this one in unfortunate fashion. Again, not the ideal start you want to have in this 2-game London series here to show off the team, especially across the globe, going across the pond like this. You're not going to build Mets fans this way, I'll tell you that much. But thank you guys all so much for watching. We'll be back live tomorrow, probably around 12:30, 1 p.m. Eastern time is when that game will be done. So we'll be here bright and early tomorrow for a post-game coverage. Hope to see you there. Until then, have a great rest of your night, evening, whenever you're watching this, folks.